Okay, back again. GCSE question of the week, week 4, part 2. Okay, so if you watched the first video, at the end we had expanded x plus 3 in brackets and then 2x minus 2 in brackets. And we used FOIL technique on the right to give us an answer of 2x squared plus 4x minus 6. Okay, but if you remember, that was only the first part of the question. So we said that was as far as it was going to go on foundation. But on higher tier, if they're feeling mean, they might give you a triple bracket, like this one, to expand. So we already know that the answer of the x plus 3 multiplied by the 2x minus 2 part gives us this. Gives us 2x squared plus 4x minus 6. So what we now need to do is multiply that by our third bracket, 4x plus 1. So let's try that now. Okay, we've got 2x squared plus 4x minus 6. We'll put that in brackets. And we need to multiply that by this part, the 4x plus 1. So we'll put the 4x plus 1 here. Now what that means is we need to multiply every term in this bracket by every term in this bracket. So we're going to do the 4x multiplied by that, that, and that. And then we're going to do the 1 in this bracket multiplied by that, that, and that. Okay, now you don't have to write out the next part as I'm going to, but it might help you to see what's going on. So let's split that second bracket up. So we're going to put, that's the same as doing the 4x multiplied by that first bracket, the 2x squared plus 4x minus 6. And then the plus 1 multiplied by everything in that first bracket, the 2x squared plus 4x minus 6. So I've just split that blue bracket up, if you like, into its two parts. It just means we're multiplying everything in the left hand bracket by the 4x and everything in the left hand bracket then by the 1. So let's do that now. What are we going to get? Right, well, first of all, we're going to get a term from the 4x multiplied by the 2x squared. Okay, that's going to give me 2 times 4, which is 8. Can do the number part. And x multiplied by x squared. That's going to give me x cubed. So 4x multiplied by 2x squared will give me the 8x cubed. Right, we're then going to multiply the 4x by the second term, the 4x. Well, that's going to give me 4 times 4 is 16. X times x is x squared. So 4x times 4x gives me 16x squared. Right, we're then going to do 4x multiplied by the negative 6. So 4x multiplied by the negative 6. That's going to give me 4 times negative 6 is negative 24. So I'm going to need a minus here. Plus times a minus is a minus. Minus 24x. Okay, there was an x with the 4x. None with the 6. We're going to get negative 24x. Right, so we then hop onto the second bracket. So what are we going to do? Right, we're going to do the plus 1 multiplied by the 2x squared. So that's going to give me plus 2x squared. We are then going to do a plus 1 multiplied by a plus 4. That's going to give me plus 4x. And finally, we're going to do the plus 1 multiplied by the negative 6. So plus times a minus is a minus. 1 times 6 is 6. We get minus 6. Now some of you are perhaps screaming at me now saying, well, that last bit was obvious. We've got the plus 1 in blue, one lot of all of the following bracket. It's just the bracket. We're going to get whatever's in the bracket on the right. Okay, but it may not have been a 1 outside, so best to go through the steps. Right, we can now do some simplifying. Or can we? Let's have a look. Right, do we have any more terms in x cubed? No, that's the only one. That's the only term in x cubed, so that's the best we can do. We leave it as it is, 8x cubed. Do we have any multiple terms of x squared? So we've got 16x squared, and we've got 2x squared. We can just add those together. We're not multiplying this time. It says 16x squared plus 2x squared. We can just lump them together. We've got plus 18x squared. Okay, do we have any terms in x that we can simplify? Yep, we've got minus 24x plus 4x. So I think that minus 24x plus 4x is going to give me minus 20x. Okay, we've got to have a negative coefficient there because we've got more of the negative x's than positive x's. If you want to think on a number line, we go to minus 24x, sorry, negative 24x, and then we add 4x, but it's only going to take us up to negative 20x. Okay, and I think that's the last one we can do, because after that, we've only got 1 minus 6 at the end. Okay, there's nothing else that we can simplify there. We can just lump on the minus 6. Right, so we're done. Okay, expand and simplify. X plus 3, 2x minus 2, 4x plus 1 gives us 8x cubed plus 18x squared minus 20x minus 6. That's our answer. Now some of you might be thinking, well, at the start we pretended that one of those brackets wasn't there. We just ignored that one. Okay, we expanded the first two brackets, then we added the third one in at the end. Would it matter if we'd have chosen to ignore that one for a start? Use the second two brackets, expanded those, and then added the first bracket. Just pause the video, check for yourself, you should find it gives you exactly the same answer. Right, clear some space, let's have a look at number 2. Right, number 2 is where things start getting really tricky. So if you looked at this today and you're in year 10, don't panic. No one is expecting you to be able to do these ones just yet, but you will be able to. Right, number 2, solve x squared minus 9x plus 18 is greater than 0. So we've got a quadratic inequality. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pretend that that greater than is a 0. It's an equals for a start, not a 0. We'll pretend that greater than is an equal. And if we write the equation x squared minus 9x plus 18 equals 0. Okay, you might already know that to solve that we could use our quadratic equation, or usually in these cases we can factorise it. So we're going to try and factorise this equation. So that means the opposite of what we just did, expand and simplify. We're going to try and put some brackets in. We're going to factorise. And a quadratic is pretty much always going to need something like that. We're going to need those two x's at the start to give us our x squared term. There is no coefficient other than 1 there, so we just need an x and an x. Right, we're then going to think of two numbers that multiply together to make 18. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply together to make the 18, factors of 18, and they've got to add together to make negative 9. Alright, so what are my factors of 18? Well, I can have 1 and 18 to make the 18. I can have 2 and 9. I can have 3 and 6. I think that's about it. Okay, so which ones of those are looking like they might add together in some way to give me the 9 somehow? I know it's a negative 9. Well, I can't see those working. 9 plus 2 makes 11. 9 minus 2 is 7. Now I can't see those working. 6 and 3, well, they look like they might give me a 9 when I add them. So I reckon it might be these. Okay, now I've got positive 18 that I've got to make. So I either need two positives or I need two negatives. But if I put two positives in, there's no way I'm going to make that minus 9x in the middle. So I reckon we need two negatives. So let's go for my 3 and my 6. Right, which way am I going to put them in? Well, sometimes this is going to make a big difference. Here I'm not sure it really matters, okay, because I've got minus 3, minus 6. I don't think it matters either way around this time, because I'm going to get a negative 3x from the middle terms and a negative 6x from the outside terms. Won't make any difference. Right, so I reckon we're done. Okay, we've got x minus 3, x minus 6 equals 0. So what does this mean? Well, to solve this equation, right, it means that either this bracket has to be 0, because 0 times whatever this bracket is will give me 0, or it means that this bracket has got to be 0, because 0 times whatever this bracket is will give me 0. So one of those brackets needs to be 0 to solve that equation, or both of them. Okay, so how do we make the first bracket equal to 0? Well, you can probably see this without writing the equation by the side, but if we want x minus 3 to equal 0, then x has got to be 3. And on the bracket on the right, if we want x minus 6 to be 0, then we need x to be 6. It's reversing the sign of the number that's in there. Okay, so I think the answer to this equation is that x is either 3 or x can be 6. Alright, so what would a graph of that look like? What would a graph? We've got a quadratic, and we know that x can be 3 or 6 to make the function, if you like, 0. So what would that look like? Let's sketch that graph. We sketch the graph. We've got a quadratic, and the quadratic was a positive x squared. Positive x squared, if you've watched my video on graph types, or the first one, positive x squared, think smiley face. We're going to get a graph shape like that. But where does it cut the axes? Well, when the function is 0, okay, then our y value will be 0. And when does that happen? That happens when x is 3 or 6. So I think at this point, 3, it only needs to be a sketch. And at this point, 6, and already you can see it's a sketch because those intervals are not the same. Okay, at those 2 points, our function is 0. So at x is 3 and at x is 6, it cuts the y-axis. Okay, at that point, the y value is 0. So we've got a quadratic graph that's a smiley, and it's something like that. It cuts at x is 3 and it cuts at x is 6. Right, so how does that help us? Well, that helps us because our original problem was not x squared minus 9x plus 18 equals 0. It was solve x squared minus 9x plus 18 is greater than 0. So we now need to look at our graph, and we need to think, okay, so x squared minus 9x plus 18 is 0, the line is 0, the y value is 0 at x is 3 and x is 6. Okay, they're called the roots of this graph, the roots of this function. Okay, the values of x that make the function equal to 0. But we really want, where is the function greater than 0? Well, if we look at our graph, this is where the graph really helps. So if the function equals 0 here and here, where is it greater than 0? Well, it looks to me that it's greater than 0 here, and it's greater than 0 here. That's where the function is greater than 0. Alright, so what are we looking for in terms of x? Well, we're looking for where x is, let's choose a different colour pen, you can't see that. We're looking for values of x where x is greater than 6, because anywhere greater than 6, we get this function being above 0, and anywhere where x is less than 3, because anywhere less than 3, the function is greater than 0. Right, so our answers are x is less than 3, or x is greater than 6. Right, now better just check that out. If we're right, x is less than 3 should make this equation work. So x is less than 3, well maybe x could be 2. That's less than 3, let's try it. If x is 2, 2 squared is 4, minus 2 times 9 is 18, plus 18. Does that give me something that's greater than 0? Well, it looks like it gives me 4, which is greater than 0. So I think we're probably good. Okay, what about x is greater than 6? Well, maybe x could be 7. That should work in the equation. So let's put that in. 7 squared is 49. Take away, subtract. 49 subtract, what are we doing? 7. 9 sevens. Okay, so we've got 63. Plus 18. Okay, does this work out? 49 subtract 63. I think that's negative 14 plus 18. Does it work? Is that greater than 0? Yeah, that's going to give me positive 4. That is greater than 0. Okay, so again, I think we're correct. X is less than 3 and x is greater than 6. They're our solutions.